Well, good morning and welcome to Diversity MBA's monthly DE&I Best Practice podcast. I'm Larissa Williams, the Vice President of the DEI Center of Excellence at Diversity MBA. We're thrilled to continue our ongoing series focused on the theme of being prepared for what's next. These discussions aim to offer insights and raise awareness about best practices, and in some instances, introduce next practices for effectively supporting an organization's DE&I strategies. In today's session, we have the privilege of hearing from one of Diversity MBA's esteemed advisory board members, Sharmila Fowler Pose, who serves as the head of DE&I at Echo Global Logistics. We'll delve into how to ensure your DE&I strategies are forward-looking, equipping you to navigate the evolving landscape of managing diversity programs, which we know some of us have our own challenges with managing diversity programs. Our goal for today is to share those best practices that contribute to the creation of inclusive and equitable workplaces. As we know, we all strive for that. So let's dive right into today's conversation with Sharmila, who will share valuable perspectives on what it takes to stay ahead in DE&I by preparing for what lies ahead. So hi, Sharmila. We're so excited to have you join us today.
Yes, I'm really excited as well, Larissa. It's my pleasure.
Awesome. We like to start every conversation focused on a topic that's very important to us and near and dear to us, which is wellness. We know that doing this work has its challenges, but it's so important that we as diversity practitioners, check on one another just to see how we're doing, right? So Sharmila, here's the question. Tell us about who you are and how you keep yourself well.
All right. Well, as you mentioned, I am head of diversity, equity, and inclusion at Echo Global Logistics. I joined Echo in August of 2021. So, sort of in the middle of lots of stuff going on in society. COVID was still going on. I was, people were not in the office. And I was also the first DEI leader there.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So what was really interesting is I had basically a blank slate. And so, in just sort of getting to know the leaders and all the employees and so forth, we put together our framework, which is we call RIDE, which is aptly named for our industry, and it stands for Results Through Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity. And that structure, which is really comprised of these 4 pillars where we can easily include different initiatives, forms the basis for what we're doing. Along with RIDE, we also created a governance structure, which included, and it's evolved to be an advisory board, the RIDE advisory board, which is our senior level executives, our RIDE Regional Council, which includes leaders from some of our larger offices around the country, and some of their reports as well, so that we can kind of keep tabs on what's happening in the branch offices. They can understand what's happening in corporate, and we can, share amongst each other. So that's been very helpful. And then lastly, our business resource groups. So that's sort of, the structure. There's a lot going on, but I know that it's also important to keep myself well.
Yeah.
And so, there's always the old stuff like try to eat well, try to work out, and spend time socializing with family and friends. That's something I near and dear to my heart. But I also take time to follow my passions. And one of the things I love doing is learning about history and culture through either reading, through watching movies, or through travel, and especially international travel. And then I have a lot of creative pursuits. So writing poetry, drawing, and lots of other things.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction. Tell us a little bit about Echo Logistics. Who is Echo Logistics?
Echo is, in the easiest sense, a freight broker. So, we focus on managed transportation, we focus on logistics, all sort of in with a technology bent, right? So we utilize um, tech to really advance in terms of what we're doing in our business. And so half of our company, we have about 3,200 employees, almost half are in sales. And so they're the ones working with our clients that need to move goods. And then we also have the other side where they're working with our carriers that are moving the goods. So hence the broker. We don't have a lot of assets, it's mainly the brokerage.
Okay. And so can you share a little bit about your current DE&I strategy? What are your current priorities for Echo?
So, one of the things that we're really doing is trying to ensure that DE&I is really embedded in the entire organization. So, right now, DEI, it sits in HR, and I spent a lot of time working on, with all of our talent, COEs within HR to look at talent acquisition, to look at talent management and advancement and training and retention. But we're also working on, and we've recently launched our new community engagement initiative, which we're calling Echo for Good, and that actually just launched in November. And so that's another initiative. And then the third big initiative that we've been working on, and it's evolving, is our supplier diversity initiative. So there's these three areas, but by working through all of these, we're really trying to touch different parts of the business.
And you said the first area was focused on talent management?
Talent acquisition and talent management. So just that whole employee life cycle, how, to attract, employees to Echo all the way through, when they're leaving. So trying to understand.
Mhm. Now, this industry is historically known to be heavily male dominated. Is that correct?
It is, yes.
Yeah. And so, with your talent management and acquisition strategy, do you have any specific focuses on targeting women or bringing more women into the industry?
We do. And it really depends on the department. So, for example, I'll give you sales. We really are making a big effort to hire more women into sales. Right now, it's heavily male dominated, and so we've got some strategies that we're working on, and one that we're hopefully trying to ramp up will be our Women in Sales initiative that
Mhm.
will help kind of the women that are there right now, trying to sort of kind of connect to them more and
Mhm.
continue to focus on retention strategies while at the same time looking at more attraction strategies to get women to our business.
So did
So
you so that's really wonderful. And a lot of companies during the pandemic had the great resignation where they lost a lot of women within their organizations. Did you all have any did you have a similar impact to Echo during that time?
so I think we lost women in different parts, but I don't know if it was as pronounced. Um, and I think for us, it's a lot of it is just trying to get women into this industry. And when you think about transportation and logistics, it's not really top of mind for women in general. There's a lot of perceptions, I guess, that women have about this industry. We've talked to a lot of women, and when you start to think about that, they're not true, but it's a perception about being male dominated, being heavy lifting when you talk about transportation logistics, or just various maybe biases that people have. So it's what we're trying to do is really just get more women and get more people of color into our company.
Mhm. And that being said, that's really a great segue to my next question. So, as the head of DE&I, how do you approach strategic planning for the future? How do you ensure that your DE&I initiatives align with the evolving needs of the organization for Echo?
Yeah. So one of the good things, and I didn't really mention this when I was talking about myself, but I have worked across multiple functions previously. So I'm highly attuned to ensuring, again, that DEI aligns with the business. So if you think about this, I've worked not only in DEI and HR, but my background is really in marketing, in sales, in data and insights, in strategic planning, and community engagement. And I started off my career in tech. So I can work with different departments, trying to understand their needs and trying to tie DEI into, that portion of the business, because I know that's imperative. And then the other thing that I'm trying to do as we continue to evolve and align with the needs of the business is to ensure that we look at all of our stakeholders
Mhm.
so that we can make sure that we're working on the right initiatives. So not only our employees, but our customers, our suppliers, and all those community partners. And we do it through informal conversations. When I'm talking with leaders, I have a lot of touch bases, through listening sessions or focus groups, through our pulse surveys, and through just feedback. Right? There's always people reaching out to me with ideas.
And you know what? That's really valuable. So kudos to Echo for hiring a great hire that you have this varied business experience. In addition to being a diversity expert, you also have experience working across the organization in different businesses with the different businesses, which is critical, and really it's a big plus, right? Because you know what type of questions marketing is going to ask, you know what's important to them, and so on
Yes.
and so forth, for an example. So when you say you try to stay ahead with your stakeholders, is there any type of stakeholder analysis that you do? What is your process with making certain that you align with their making certain that DE&I aligns with their priorities as well?
So one of the things, and when we think about, for example, our supplier diversity initiative, that is really taking into account, we want to help our customers. We have very large customers that have supplier diversity initiatives in place already. We realize Echo is not a diverse supplier. We're owned by a private equity firm, the Jordan Company. But we have started tracking our suppliers and the diversity of those suppliers so that we can help our customers with their tier two level suppliers. And so, that's one of the things that we're working on, because we know that a lot of these companies that have these large initiatives in place around supplier diversity look at not only tier one, but also tier two. So
Mhm.
that's one example. And I think that we have embarked on that journey and we're continuing to grow in that way.
Great, great. So, supplier diversity, that's great that you're focused on making certain that those tier two organizations, get a piece of the pie, which is so important because sometimes, diverse organizations or companies have a challenge with getting that tier one. But, when you have a robust tier two strategy, that's how they can get their foot in the door oftentimes. So that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So, with my next question, um, in this ever changing landscape of diversity and inclusion, there's always something in the news, something going on, where we need to make certain that we check in on our strategies to make certain that we're staying ahead of the curve, right? And so, how do you stay ahead of emerging challenges and proactively address issues that may impact the workplace environment?
Yeah, that's something we're all struggling with, right? There's so much going out there. It is very important to stay current on what's happening in society. We all know that it's increasingly affecting the workplace internally. And I think because of that, we have to also understand that people process these external events differently.
Mhm.
That's really, really important, and it's just based on sort of their own experiences and as they've gone through life, right? And so The biggest thing is we need to ensure that our employees have psychological safety in the workplace, that they can voice their concerns, um, and and through that, I think part of we need to address some of this through the trainings that we offer around biases or microaggressions or anything like that, and kind of weave that into all of the training, right?
Mhm.
So, you might have a standalone unconscious bias training, but then make sure that you talk about it in other trainings that you offer. So,
Mhm.
and just continuing to stress that, continuing to utilize any internal um, communication tools that
Mhm.
that the companies have to be able to kind of state what's happening, to kind of remind people, here's some resources that you can go to, and so forth.
Mhm. And do you see, thanks for saying that your training is on biases and microaggressions. And, those of us who've been in this work for a while, we've been training on that for a while now. So do you still see that training on unconscious biases still is valuable? Do you think we still need to train on that? What is your thought around that?
I think we do because we continue to bring in new employees, right? We hire a lot from college campuses, and so just continuing to talk about this in the workplace, right? I think that's important, but taking it to a higher level, like right now we're working on unconscious bias for hiring managers, so that taking it to sort of that next level where you're kind of showcasing how it might impact that whole recruiting funnel. And then we can take it, next to another area, whether it's promotion, reviews, anything like that. So I think all of this is really important, and kind of showcasing how it can affect what you might be working on within the company.
And I'm so glad that you mentioned that you have the very tailored unconscious bias training for hiring managers. And, sometimes that's where we see it, right? That's where we see the biases come into play, where a lot of companies and hiring managers really kind of they don't go against the grain to hire individuals who don't necessarily have directly applicable experiences within their industry. So, seeing that you have the focus on trying to attract more women to your organization, what type of things are you encouraging your hiring managers to look at, so that they're not, unconsciously biased, and seeing that you are heavily male dominated? What are some things you're looking at to make certain that your hiring managers are equipped to be inclusive to individuals who may not necessarily have directly applicable experiences to working in logistics, for example? How do you prepare them to have that type of competency as they are interviewing and selecting their candidates?
So that's actually what we're in the process of working on right now. And through this training that we're putting together, I'm working with the VP of Talent Acquisition. That we hope to be able to start making some changes there and talk about how biases can affect all different stages of that whole recruiting funnel. And it's really not just for women, but we also know that we need to also hire more people of color. The good news is, over the last couple of years, we have actually seen increases in our hiring numbers. So we're on the right path, but we want to continue that.
Hmm. That's wonderful. That's so important to make certain that your hiring managers are really living as that inclusive individual, because sometimes they're on the front line, right? Potential candidates see them first, right? And
Yeah.
so they are a representation of your company. So that's wonderful. That's excellent. That you do that, and that's kudos to Echo for doing that with your training. That's awesome.
Thank you.
So my next question is about employee resource groups. I'm wondering, do you utilize do you have employee resource groups? I know you mentioned diversity councils.
Mhm.
And if so, how do you leverage their expertise to help with executing on your DE&I strategy?
Yeah. So when I came in, we thought really hard about this and we renamed our employee resource groups to be business resource groups. So, because we wanted to connect that mission closer to the business, right? So, our BRGs exist not only to focus on employees, but also to serve our communities and impact our business. And we
Mhm.
have five. So, our first one is called Merge, and it encompasses it's our multi-ethnic resource group for everyone. So it encompasses all races, ethnicities, and cultures. Our second one is around families. We have one for military, pride, and women. So they're all, got their BRG leaders, they've got executive sponsors, and then they've got committee chairs. We also created, in terms of trying to impact the working group, the business, we created working groups. And BRG members can volunteer to be on one. And really, what it is when we have a business initiative that arises where we can utilize the BRGs to help advance it and to maybe lend a DEI lens, we include them. And
Mhm.
so I'll give you an example. We have a benefits working group going on right now that is looking at sort of trying to understand the awareness of the benefits that we do offer, um, utilization, satisfaction, and then as well as helping us brainstorm new benefits that might serve our employee base better. So that's a group that I think can help make a good impact on the business. Um, there's another one that is focused on building our BRG membership. And we've started out working with creating a BRG awareness week. And that
Mhm.
is actually taking place next week. And we have several activities, not only in our headquarters location in Chicago, but also 7 regional offices are participating as well. And it's all in person.
So, Sharmila, so this is wonderful that your employee resource groups are now business resources, which is wonderful because I remember years ago when employee resource group, we started out in affinity groups and then they went from affinity groups to networking groups to then the resource and then the business resource. And so, those of us who've been doing this work, we have to always show that, hey, these are not just clubs, they are a business resource. So, what type of communication or support do you provide to the business resource groups to ensure that the company, that Echo Logistics, that the leaders there see that they are a business resource? So, how do you do that?
So basically, we have so many different ways of communicating. One is, I provide updates to our advisory council, which is, very important. But then I also have monthly meetings with various groups. So we have our executive sponsors and our BRG leads, which typically we have 1 to 3 leads for each BRG. Okay. And these are sort of that over the high level oversight. Um, I meet with them monthly as well, all 5 BRGs and their leadership, so that we can kind of talk through what's happening. We give updates and we talk about any potential collaboration ideas. Then we also have chairs for various uh, committees. And one focuses on employees, and one committee focuses on the community, and then there's also one of the BRGs also has a social chair. And so from there, I meet with those chairs, so all the ones that are focused on employees, and we see what's happening there as well as with the communities. And so I think that's just important because now we're understanding and we get updates on what other BRGs are doing. Sometimes those are some great best practices for other BRGs to follow, right? Um, and then there's the working groups. And so those members in those BRGs can then, also volunteer for those working groups. And we have regular meeting cadences as well.
Mhm. So Sharmila, that's wonderful that you have executive sponsors, because that was going to be my next follow-up question about the executives. Do you have executive sponsors? Because
Yes.
some of our companies will say that, especially when they're just starting out with their employee resource groups at grassroots level, and they, try to identify, what are some of the best practices for the executive sponsors, because sometimes the executives are voluntold that
Oh,
they need to
yes.
do this. And so if you could, right, like, okay, like, wow, I have more, I have enough on my plate. And so, but we know that the executive sponsors can play a very, very critical role with
Yes.
helping to educate the business on, what the business resource group can do to provide insights, to help with any issue or challenges that, businesses may be faced with. That it truly is a business resource. So, if you could share a little bit about, how do you continue to get your executive sponsors engaged? And, because some of them should serve as a mentor coach, right?
Yes.
But, so do you have it set up in that way? And so what are some of your best practices for your executive sponsors, and how do you keep them engaged?
Yeah, so they actually are a part of these monthly groups where we meet with the BRG leadership. So just so that they're engaged, their understanding of what's happening amongst all of our BRGs. I also meet with each executive sponsor individually on a
Mhm.
regular basis so that I can touch base with them, understand what's working, what things we might need to address, and so I think that also keeps them, in the loop. But
Mhm.
all of these executive sponsors were not voluntold; they all volunteered, and so we were
Nice.
really excited about that. They're also in different parts of the business, so I think that helps as well. In just terms of visibility and awareness, and when they talk about the BRGs.
Mhm. That's wonderful. Well, here's my last question. This time goes by so fast when you're having a great conversation. So as diversity leaders, what do we need to do to continue to show our value within organizations? I hate to ask that question in that way, but the reality is some of us have to continue to show our value. And then also, as a follow-up to that question, what's the one thing diversity practitioners should do to prepare for what's coming next? Because we learned that during the pandemic, we thought we were ready and we didn't realize that it was going to last that long. But then we had to tweak our strategies to make certain that we were checking in with our people, right?
Yeah.
So those two things, how do we continue to show our value? And then how do we prepare for what's coming next? What do you think?
So I think one of the things in terms of showing value, there's a lot of things. When I came on board, our focus was really to focus on DEI as a learning journey.
Mhm.
Okay, because so many people, we were just very early on. There wasn't, as much diversity in the organization, and so we needed to make sure people understood and really embraced it. But the way to do it is to do it through learning. So we created several different initiatives that people could join to really just grow that mindset. I think that's one thing. So while doing that, we also need to make sure that we continue to be adaptable to the needs of the business, and continue to drive integration of DEI into the very DNA of the organization, if you want to say that, because I think it's got to go everywhere. It can't just be in HR, right?
Mhm. Right.
And then the big thing is showing progress. So we do track the progress um, of what we're doing. Right now, we have a lot of data on employees throughout the life cycle, and we are seeing progress in certain areas and then opportunities in certain areas. But that's what we have to track, and then we have to continue to move forward.
So how
So
do you show your progress? I'm sorry, Sharmila. How do you show
yeah,
your progress? Is there like an annual report? Is something that you email out to all the employees? How do you show your progress to the organization?
so we create a ESG report every year.
Okay.
So yeah, and so in the S section, we have a lot of information on what we're doing, not only in HR but around DEI, and then we give updates, and then we also have our data, and that's out there on our website, so it's available for everyone to see. And so, I think that that's important because it does show the progress we're making in hiring and representation as well for women and people of color.
And that's something you do on an annual basis, or do you have a
Yes,
quarterly basis?
we do it on an annual basis. Now, we also have quarterly talent health reviews that we've recently started, and we meet with the department leaders
Mhm.
to showcase sort of that data as well. And DEI is embedded, all the diversity data is embedded throughout those reports. Because I think it's important to have it all in one report rather than have a DEI report as well.
Nice. And with your quarterly talent health reviews, do you find that report supports you in getting more leadership engagement and accountability for DE&I?
Yeah, I think so. That those reviews incorporate several leaders from HR, so it's really good because we're all talking the same language now. So when we're talking about talent acquisition, we can kind of showcase that funnel and say where are those opportunity areas. When we're talking about development and retention numbers and promotion numbers, we've got our talent management, our HRBPs involved as well, and so it's all in one meeting. And I think that's really important because it really does also showcase that integration
Mhm,
of DEI into the
mhm,
business.
mhm. And so, what's the one thing we should do as diversity practitioners to prepare for what's coming next? What do you think?
I think there's a couple things. I mean, I think continuing to showcase and the data, to be transparent, to hold leaders accountable. I think that's going to start being, you know, more and more leaders are going to be asking for that. I think that's important. I think also one thing I'm noticing, we've worked a lot with our senior leaders and executives. I've also worked closely with all those BRG leaders and members that have shown the interest and passion in DEI. But
Mhm,
there's that whole group of middle managers, and that's really what I want to focus on as well next year. I think just trying to convey that importance to them, because I feel like we're coming at it from the top and from the bottom, right?
mhm, mhm,
And we have to kind of also meet, and kind of talk to all those middle managers that are, in various parts of the business,
mhm,
but are not necessarily a part of one of the BRGs or what we're doing around DEI, and kind of showcase why DEI is so important, how it will help them be better leaders, how
mhm.
it'll make them have more productive teams, and achieve more for the business.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, you're right, because sometimes that middle management can be a barrier to DE&I success. And so that's right. So you got to do a lot of road shows, a lot of
Yes.
inviting coffee talk or
Yeah,
tea
and
talk.
one thing I'm really happy about is a lot of the leaders that are now in that RIDE Regional Council.
Mhm.
I created that this year because I had a lot of branch office leaders coming to me and saying, "Hey, can you give us an update on what's happening around DEI? We don't really know all the time. Not everyone reads. We were using Workplace by Facebook. No, not everyone reads that all the time. And so that kind of spurred this idea of let's get everyone together and then talk about it at one time. And
Mhm.
they wanted to meet every 6 weeks. So that's really great.
That's awesome.
Um, but I think that, so that I think that's important, just finding more managers to continuously, just kind of meet with and talk through, what can they do? What's their role? And what are the benefits that they will see? But again, integrating it into what they're doing, not as another project.
Right, right. That's so
But
important.
yeah, and I have one more thing because we touched on it in the beginning, but
Uh-huh.
it is, just sort of that self-care, right? Because as
Mhm,
DEI leaders, we're juggling so many responsibilities.
mhm.
We all have limited resources. I don't know one DEI leader that doesn't say, I need more, budget people, whatever,
Yeah.
time.
Right, right.
Right? So it's, trying to step back, make it sure that we don't burn out, make sure that we have self-care,
Mhm.
because then we can continue to do great things for the companies we work for.
That's so important because you have to be healthy in order to execute and deliver.
Yeah. And it's
Right?
something I love. It's my passion. So I love doing this work, and you can
Uh-huh.
easily get caught up and come up with new, initiatives and ideas, but you kind of have to prioritize.
Yeah, that's so important. Well, thank you. This time goes by so quickly, and it's always a pleasure to see you and to have conversation with you about DEI because it's so important, and you all are doing some really great things at Echo. So I really thank you, Sharmila, for taking time out of your day to spend this little bit of time with us to talk through how we're preparing for what's next. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Larissa. Have a great day.
You too. Bye bye.